So thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm so excited for our guest, and we're going to be talking about mental health today. And I want to say, first of all, with the guest that I have, that he did not ask a lot of questions about what we were going to talk about when I asked him to talk about mental health. So I give him a lot of credit for just being a good participant and just being open to the discussion, because I think that is a lot more than most. So I will let him introduce himself.
Hi. I'm Brian Krause. I'm an actor. Some of you might know me from long ago, Return of the Blue Lagoon, Sleepwalkers, more, I guess, famously or current, the show Charmed. And I played Leo, which is kind of an angel, white lighter, um, and many other things since then. Most importantly, I'm a dad and just a dude.
That's really good. I just thank you for having this discussion. But I would like to ask, what was your first reaction to just knowing that the topic was going to be about mental health?
No real reaction. It's such a discussion these days, as it should be, and it's really something that's been a huge piece of my life the last few years. I stopped drinking 6 years ago, and that's all mental health. Yeah, addiction, whatever, but before addiction, there's a mental health breakdown in which bad thinking, if you will, negative, 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 and we cover our thoughts with alcohol or whatever it may be. From that, this last year, there's been a bit of trauma in my family life. My son was struck by a car, um, injured horrifically, broke his neck and his back and his leg and his pelvis and tore his head and all this stuff. And he spent a few months in the hospital. And since then, rehabbing, the one thing we made sure is that he physically could rehab and walk again, which is truly, truly, truly a miracle. And what we've noticed in this last year, even, is that we put such an emphasis on this physical rehab that, it's funny with medical system, there's no money, nobody covers the mental side of this, his PTSD, his making sure that he comes out of it on the right side. And that's kind of what we've been up against the last couple months, dealing with his PTSD, his just loving himself and life and feeling that it's a gift, and not going down that negative train. And it's really been prevalent in this last few weeks, honestly. I went to a fundraiser, Machen Amick, some of you may know from the show Riverdale. She started um, a foundation called Don't Mind Me, and they help underprivileged people, people that may not have the means to get into a facility in the San Diego area, which deals with addiction, but a main focus of these places are mental health rehabilitation. And it goes from brain mapping and scanning to group therapy, personal sessions, working, meditation, and all these things just to get you on the right track to be super positive. And it was something we entertained for my son just literally a few weeks ago. And the important steps that we've taken in just the last couple of weeks of taking somebody who was, potentially suicidal, and really not liking their life to, getting some therapy and having a friends group and finding some purpose in their own life. So the timing of this is kind of uncanny, I suppose.
So you were saying he was feeling suicidal towards everything that he was experiencing on his road to recovery?
Well, even before the accident, he's mid 20s, and I think a lot of us, especially coming out of the pandemic and the isolation and everything, and a lot of young people have been kind of questioning their place in the world, and then the amount of bullying and things that go on with social media and the pressure of that, and this self identity crisis I think a lot of people are having. That already existed. So then the accident kind of exacerbated a lot of it, plus the PTSD. So yeah, he had kind of hit a bottom a month or so ago, and it was really scary. I didn't want to leave him alone for a minute. So, I spent literally these last few weeks just kind of, holding his hand and being there for him and just doing whatever I can to help, you know.
Having, I'm sorry, I was going to say having that firsthand experience with somebody that is that in that position in their life, uh, how did you cope? What are the coping skills that you can share with somebody who knows exactly what you're talking about?
You know, I- breathing, uh, breathing. I learned last year. I think a lot of us, and getting sober for me was a huge step, and learning how to love myself and be happy with life and all of it. And what I found for me is I hold my breath, and that leads to tension and it leads to stress and that leads to overthinking and I got to get things done, and that leads to a decline in all of it, right? My happiness, my everything. So I went through a circumstance before his accident, and kind of I had met some people that helped me find a way to breathe again and meditate and breathe. And there's nothing like it. And so through the accident and the hospital and everything, it was literally breathing and meditating that helped me the most. So as we got into this last month, breathing and, relying on some of my friends, talking to other parents who had children that went through the same thing, and them offering their expertise was really great. Just listening was probably the best thing I could do. And also reaching out, telling people, telling other parents, what's going on. I was literally at a point where I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, and crying and tears, and I couldn't help this person, my son, and hearing from other parents really helped a lot. And then I had mentioned Machen before, and she had reached out and she walked me through a lot of it as well, and talked, and we got on the phone with the therapist. And I think so many of us try to, it's one thing if you break your leg, you can show up to work with a cast on it and everybody gives you sympathy. But if you stay home for the weekend because you've been crying and your life is falling apart and you don't show up Monday, they fire you. If you show up sad at work, they say, "What's your problem?" That nobody has empathy for it, yet we all go through it. So this is the big confusing part of it, is that it's the thing we don't want to talk about that we all go through. And I think what helped me most was just reaching out to my friends group, and being willing to listen, because I don't have the answers. And there are professionals for these sort of things. And it's the one thing I'd say, it's nothing you're going to be able to get through yourself as one parent, as one person. This is one moment. Just like if you broke your leg, you need the doctors. There's people that can help. And I think the best thing I did was just reach out to people.
I think you kind of touched on two things that I found a lot in my research, and that was really that feeling of kind of being alone and also kind of feeling that people won't understand what you're going through. Can you explain, is that kind of how you felt when you were reaching out to people for help, knowing that this was a moment you really needed to reach out for help?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been kind of an isolator myself. That's why I drank so much. That's why it led to bad thinking. That's everything. And, um, I knew I have a friend, a similar friend, another actor who his daughter she's in a really tough relationship. She has mental health issues. She's in an abusive relationship with someone who, honestly, we should go kick the guy's freaking ass for what he's done to her. But she's convinced in her mind that it's okay. I love him. He loves me. And it's really tumultuous. And I've been there for him, listening and give him advice, and he gives me advice, and we go see our therapist individually. Then we share and we talk about, how that works. And um, you know, I didn't know what to do, and I literally said that to my friend Mark. I said it to Machen. I said it to my ex-wife. I said it to all my friends and anybody who would listen. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I'm at a loss, and you know, such a terrible feeling as a parent to not be able to help your child. And ultimately, I couldn't. All I could do is offer my support and put him in touch with the people that could offer help. And then it was kind of up to him. Personally, to be able to admit to oneself that I'm not in a good mental place and I need help, that's the hardest step, I think, for anybody that's, facing depression or suicide or, any sort of negative self-talk is actually admitting it to yourself and having other people be witness to that. And, you got to put your pride aside and say, look, I can't do this alone. And I think it's the hardest step for any of us to take.
You kind of just stay in that place a little longer. How did you actually get past that feeling of like, I like to handle things myself? I don't want to ask for help. I think a lot of people can relate to that, including myself. How did you finally feel like you could do that safely, ask other people for help and get it?
Well, it was like drinking, right? I knew that if I kept drinking, I was going to die, and it's almost a rock bottom, if you will. Like you run out of options. There is no other choice, And one thing I've learned in the last 5 years or so, going through my own program, is I don't have all the answers, and I know some of us. Maybe you have a doctorate, maybe you have a master's, maybe you have a this, maybe you're worth a lot of money, but you know what? You didn't do it alone. Maybe you studied, whatever, but you always had help. So, there's no reason to not ask for help in a situation like this. It comes down to pride. And it's something I've tried to lose over the last few years, and just be humble and be in the now and be present. And when my son was learning how to walk again, I knew how to help him, right? Okay, I can help you, but I can also send you to this therapist, right? That's also going to help you. So I knew how to do that. When it comes to brain and emotions and whatever, how I can only tell him so much and give him my opinion, right? And the dynamic of parent to son or friend to friend, it's we need to see professionals. So what I guess I just ran out of options. And I have friends that I adore, and I value their opinions. And, I guess it was just putting myself aside, knowing that I can't fix this, and I needed help. And, you know, it's my son. Listen, I will do anything to hope and pray and help him be a happy, full functioning, successful human being in whatever capacity he chooses. So, um, I'll spend my last dime on earth. It doesn't matter, walk through fire, whatever, right? So, reaching out to people it wasn't a big stretch as a parent. I think the harder one is if you don't have that relationship with a parent or a loved one, and you're sitting alone, uh, kind of as I did when, I stopped drinking and how depressed I was. And, being able to take that first step to go to that first AA meeting or not drink today or whatever that is. I think that's the hardest thing for any of us to do, is to finally admit to yourself that you're powerless and you need help. And whether that's for a drug addiction or just sadness or your life's out of control, or you feel maybe I'm crazy or whatever. We all have these thoughts. And I think what I would say to everybody out there is, stop pretending that it's a rare thing that people have mental health issues. It's we all have it. You look at every single person's family. I don't care if you're the richest people on the planet. There's someone in that family that's hurting. Every family, everywhere you look around the world. And we just, oh, well, you got to be tough. You got to it's really crazy.
So suicide is one of the leading causes of death in the US, and mental health is so prevalent that it's being referred to as an epidemic in this country. Do you feel like you can see why in your experiences?
Well, I don't think the pandemic helped. I don't think 2020 and locking us down and taking kids out of school and isolating everybody and putting on a mask and us not being able to talk to one another and staying away from each other and then just feeding us social media and the news. I don't think that did anything to help people feel closer together and have community. I think the number one thing that stops suicide is people feeling like they belong, that they have someone to talk to, that they're a part of a community. I've spent a lot of time with people on the streets and homeless, and the number one thing that they talk about is, they don't have anyone to talk to, and they just someone to talk to. And it's not about the drugs. It's not about anything else. That they feel somewhere they're broken, they're lonely, nobody will listen to them. And I don't think the pandemic really helped us in that. And so I think it created isolation for a lot of children, for a lot of people in their 20s, in their 30s, in their 50s, and we all kind of fell out of our groups. And, oh, these four people are hanging out because, they know each other. And these four people are hanging out, and these two, and these five. And it really kind of, it pulled us all apart. Um, and I feel like being a part of a community is necessary for human beings, that we must come together. We must share experiences and laugh and have a sense of belonging to something that's not so isolating.
There are definitely people that are probably watching that think very similarly that they don't have anybody to talk
Yeah.
to. Uh, what would you say to them?
That it's not true. That there are plenty and plenty and plenty of people out there just like you that are willing to talk to you. There's places to go, and you may not have an alcohol problem, but you know what? You could always show up to an AA meeting, and they're going all day, 7 a.m. to midnight, every day, every city, every county around this country, and there are people in that room who are looking to connect. There's plenty of rooms and places and people that will listen, and people will bring you in and befriend you. It's out there. Nobody has to do this alone. Nobody.
Do you feel like a lot of what you're saying is stuff that you learned within the last 6 years with your own battle with addiction and alcohol?
I think so. I first tried to get sober a little over 10 years ago, and I did 6 months, and then I did a year, and then I did a year and a half, and then I was like, oh, I have everything under control, and don't need to go month on, month off, and I was kind of playing this game with myself, fooling myself. You know, I, when I was young, I was super, super, super confident, and I believed in what I wanted to do and what I wanted to get, and it happened, and fairly quickly. And then I became goalless and kind of lost direction, and then a few losses and lose some money, lose a girlfriend, lose a wife, lose a thing, and these losses added up to where now all that confidence I had is now all that negativity I have, and it became super overwhelming, and I can't stop my train. So going into the room and meeting other people, because I thought I'm so different, right? Nobody's like me. Like nobody's has my problem. You're either crazy drug addict or, there's no in the middle. And going into these rooms, it's like, I, wow, wow, you're just like, wow. Being special, it got rid of my ego, I suppose, of thinking that I was so different. Nobody has these problems like me, right? Oh, my girlfriend, my this, my boyfriend, these guys, they tease me. And it's not true. Yes, everyone's individual life is different, but the circumstances might be somewhat different, but the results are the same. And people go through loss. People go through, heartache. People go through losing a job, losing whatever, negative self-talk, being bullied online. We're all dealing with this, and it did help me realize that there's a group of people I could talk to that are out there that I found some understanding. And then through that, I had to do the work. I had to come to terms with, my own failures. I had to come to terms with my own successes, with my own losses. And then once I came to terms with how life is, and it's okay, and it's actually a beautiful, beautiful thing. This experience that we're all having here in this physical realm is something we chose, and we're blessed by a God, a greater power. Um, it's a gift, and it's not to be wasted on negative self-talk. That has no place in any of our lives, and there's a way out of it.
There's a lot of references that you've made to getting help and going to therapy. And I feel like that is a conversation that's a little more common now. Therapy is okay, here's how to get it, and it's more accessible online. But for a lot of people, it's not really an option, whether it costs too much or there's not enough providers. If there are providers, they're waiting too long to get help when they need it now. What do you say to people who say, like, I'm at the point where I know that I need help, but I don't know how to get it?
Well, you're correct. It is expensive. It is, even my son, who's 28, and he's on California insurance, whatever that Cal disability, whatever it is. So there's a list. Nobody takes it. Nobody takes his insurance. Oh, you're covered by California Covered. Well, nobody takes it. Maybe in a neighborhood 50 miles away, and it's like, but nobody takes. So he's found himself, and I'm like, look, I'll pay out of pocket, whatever it takes, just go. And it's expensive, and I think if you're at that point and you can't find something affordable, whatever, look up AA. It's not exactly everything that it is, but the one thing it is, it's a group of people where you can go talk, where you can go be heard, where everybody's going through mental health rehabilitation themselves. AA isn't just about stopping drinking, it's about stopping negative thinking through support with other people. And so I found, okay, I can't spend $150 every time I see a therapist if I need to see him every day, but I can damn sure go to an AA meeting and go be around a group of people and at least talk and go get coffee with someone, or someone that maybe is further ahead in their recovery, and rebuilding themselves than I am. And so that led me to meet some people that, have become my friends, who we talk all the time. And, it's an invaluable service that's out there, and it's free, and it's put on by people who have gone through it, who have faced, addiction and suicide and everything else. And, I'm a true believer. AA is just not for, alcohol addiction. It's literally a room to go into to feel seen, to feel heard, and share as much or not as you want. So it's a shame that there's not a greater option out there. As much money in taxes as we pay for our government and mental health rehab, especially in Los Angeles and California, in the billions and billions and billions of dollars, and there still is no system that's been built for the tens of thousands of people that are on the street and the millions of people that live in this country that need it. Um, to me, we don't need to get into the politics of it, but it's shameful that we haven't set that up. And like you had said, I think it's starting to become not in vogue, but a little more accepted. And I can only say thank you to the younger people out there who see it as something that's important and needs to be talked about. And I hope to see that come down through our legislation in the next few years, that we start putting real tax dollars behind providing services for everybody out there, because we all need it.
And you're right that it's very prevalent. I think it's something around 1 in 5 Americans are suffering from some sort of mental illness. So they're likely watching you right now and they're hearing your story. They're listening to the experiences that you have been through. How do you leave them with some hope?
Uh, God, I don't know. You know, it's a choice. You have hope. To have hope is if you can say to yourself, I want to feel happy. I want this in life. If you could just say that, if you could admit to yourself, I'm tired of feeling this way. I want to feel X. It's possible. That's the first step. The first step is kind of admittance and being aware of where you're at and where you want to be. And if you can be honest with yourself and literally sit at the end of your bed, quiet, with nobody around, the phone off, and assess how you feel about yourself and your life, and then say, this is not where I want to be. I want to be here. Then that's the first step. And the next step is going to a meeting, finding a therapist, talking to a friend, and opening yourself up to the many other people that are out there. It doesn't have to be over. It's negative self-talk, and negative self-talk gets us nowhere in life, ever, ever. And I'm reminded, and I've had multiple people say this to me. Would 5-year-old Brian treat himself this way? When we look at children that are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, toddlers to small little rugrats, they love themselves. They treat themselves like they're a king. Oh, and they put their dress on and they thing, and they're like, oh, yo, I want my food this way. I want this the way. They're always feeding themselves in a way to be happy. And so one thing we do as we grow up is we get away from that child that is good to us, good to ourselves, right? And we're taught through school, through elementary and junior and high school and college, and then the real world, that no, you're awful, you're this. We're told by the media, we're told by social media, you're no good if you vote this way, if you think this way, if you drive this car, if you do this thing, if you look like this. And we're totally all the time told we're awful. It doesn't matter, where you fall in race or color or religion. You're awful. You're awful. You're awful. You're awful. So how do we then go home and be like, no, I love me and I'm worth it and I have self-worth. And getting back to that child that loves himself is possible. And it just it starts with acknowledging where you're at and saying, yeah, I want to love me. You deserve to love yourself. You deserve to love life. We all do. Every single person on this planet should be bathing in the glory of just breathing. It's a miracle. And to not see that, that's somebody did that to you. And it might be that uncle or that boyfriend or whatever. We all go through it, but somebody did that to you. And life is precious, and it's yours to hold up in the glory and live the life you want. And it's I don't know.
No, I think that's great. I think you speak from a lot of wisdom and experience. And I think too, just the fact that I reached out and I said, let's talk about mental health and you were up for it. I think that says a lot about you and your character that somebody can just say, let's talk about mental health, no reservations. Let's just have a frank conversation. So I think that's a good starting place as well. I want to thank you so much for your time today and everything that you've shared with us. I know it's not easy to just be this vulnerable and to share some really challenging moments in your life, but I can speak for myself and say that I really appreciate it. And I hope those watching in the online community too have taken something away from this as well. And I'm happy to jump in the chat and respond to some of those people as well with your questions. And I just want to thank you again so much, Brian, for your time.
You're welcome, and thanks for having me on. And you're a beacon of light as well, and keep shining, keep doing the good work, because it's appreciated by me and many others, I'm sure. And you can be anything you want to be, and number one is you can be happy.